What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Metro Boomin's debut studio album, Not All Heroes Wear Capes. Now, this came out in late 2018, and he had been working on it throughout like the mid-late 2010s. And Metro Boomin is basically he was talked about and particularly heralded trap producer from like about 2014 or so forward. He executive produced a couple future projects like Monster and What a Time to Be Alive, and he's collaborated with folks like 21 Savage, Travis Scott, Migos, Young Thug, those type people. So he's pretty big around the Atlanta sound in that area, and he's also a noteworthy figure in trap music. Definitely one of the ones of the producers, kind of like how Manny Fresh was established with like late 90s kind of rap, and Dr. Dre was kind of early 2000s, and Timbaland was mid late 2000s. I'd have to say that Metro Boomin was one of the central figures for like 2010s trap music, and that's definitely something to be said. I do feel like this is a noteworthy trap album. Has some bubblers, boilers, and bangers on here that really kick a lot of ass. It's pretty mildly promoted, but I would still have to say that it's got some hits on here. It kind of has like a whole swirl of different types of productions. It's not just all club oriented, but there is some different moments for different kind of visions and that type of stuff. So I appreciate the fact that Metro Boomin is a producer. He's not a musician if you don't know. So really, it's kind of like a DJ Khaled type album where you're gonna find just a bunch of rappers that he's affiliated with on there, as opposed to like, I mean, yeah, I just would have to say that's kind of the concept. But he just produces the whole thing, and I do kind of like the concept of like producer albums where you just get a whole album worth of beats, and then people that the producer knows go in and tear them apart. I definitely think that that's a pretty wicked idea. I'm not sure how many more times that happened before. I think at least DJ Mustard did it, and maybe Timbaland. I guess he did that too. And I guess you could say Dr. Dre, but Dr. Dre was at least a rapper too. But it's just kind of underneath the concept that I do feel like some of this is noteworthy trap, and definitely something that has some edge to it that brings more life to like the platform, apart from just having like the standard, stuff that's been kind of going on. And I do feel like, as far as that kind of goes, like when you talk about like the standard notation, like the thing about this album is it kind of has like a learning curve as far as messing with it, and that's kind of something I noticed, where there are good beats on here, but they don't necessarily have like the complete, I mean, the beat change ups are kind of like, it's a very vivid and kind of producer heavy type project. So I feel like the beats are not quite as immediate as something off of like Dr. Dre's 2001 or Kanye West The College Dropout. I mean, this is circa like 2018 when Travis Scott was dropping songs like Sicko Mode, and there were other songs like that. I can't think of other beat switch up type songs. I mean, this album is going to get a pretty solid score, but I just would have to say, in terms of adjusting to like some of the things that trap music, I mean, I just don't have like the entire grasp of everything that's kind of happened within the past 5 or 6 years. I try to cover some of these noteworthy trap albums and stuff like that sporadically, and pepper these in and kind of get like on tabs of some of this as I see that they start to have like a resounding reception, to notice that these are worth checking out. But I just kind of feel like that's kind of the concept about it, is being able to say that yeah, it's not, it has, like I said, it has like a learning curve to kind of messing with some of this stuff, and it's just kind of, that's the prospect behind it, is if you're used to like 2000s rap, early 2010s rap, anything from before about Future's Dirty Sprite to mid 2015 or so, that's kind of the concept, where some of this is kind of, it has that sort of edge to it, but not, not everyone kind of has like such an archaic kind of mentality like I do, but that's just kind of the concept. So the two singles, the first single is No Complaints, and this has Offset and Drake on there. And Offset did a collaboration album with Metro Boomin. Him and 21 Savage did one with Without Warning from 2017. Offset really delivers some good songs on here. He's not on here a ton, but he does the two songs that he's on I both enjoyed. And Drake is a part of this, and this is the only real Drake song on here. And another thing of note is the fact that Future doesn't do any songs, considering how heavily he collaborates with Metro Boomin. It's really kind of a colossal disappointment that Future is nowhere to be found. And the concept, I know that I think Metro Boomin wanted to not put Future on there just because it would have been probably too easy a hit and he didn't want the low hanging fruit, but they should have taken it anyways because I think that would have easily kind of made this quite the bounty. But that's kind of the thing. So, No Complaints has this real kind of murky and kind of oozing and kind of bubbling kind of beat on here that just really has like a nice kind of evening kind of feel. Like it can be seen as a club song, but I just feel like the murkiness towards it just gives me some other type vibes in there where it can be played in a lot of settings, but it's not just stepping out, going to a nightclub, something like that. It just has like it definitely has an evening feel to it, but I think it's more widespread than just like a night venue. So I definitely think that. But both Offset and Drake sound pretty menacing on the song. I was pretty proud of that. So that's a nice one. And then the second single is Space Cadet with Gunna. And I don't know Gunna a ton well, but this is a decent song to kind of kick off for me to see what he's about. Yeah, this is just like a very mild club song. Like it just kind of has like a very just average and kind of mild kind of production as far as like a club. I definitely can see this being played in the club. I can definitely see Space Cadet being played in a club. Just an easy kind of simple pick and a reliable pick for a club setting, especially with how popular Gunna's been. But it's just not very noteworthy production. I'd probably give it like a C plus or a B minus beat in terms of just like the kind of dull, kind of bellish sounding whatever that is on there. It just has a very mild and kind of hazy and kind of like just like I said, not dull like boring, but just dull as in kind of like mildly has its penance to it. And I think that that's just kind of the situation as far as that kind of goes. It's just like, well, I mean, like the kind of beeps and bloops that are kind of on there also that you hear in the background every now and then kind of add some spice to it. But it's just a very kind of generic kind of club tune. It works, but it's not as outstanding as No Complaints is. But it is a good song, and if you just need like if you're not so much focusing on music for stepping out and you just want to enjoy the night at a night venue, this is an easy kind of one to just kind of notice, or not necessarily notice, but just allow to kind of be ambient and concentrate on the activities of the night. But it's just simple enough, and Gunna did a good job on the song. So those are both the singles, some wicked stuff on there. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of these other ones. So out of 13 songs, I wound up liking 8. And these are the 8 songs I recommend to you. So they would be No Complaints, 10 Freaky Girls, Dreamcatcher, Only You, No More, Only One, Up to Something, and Space Cadet. So that's over half the project, and I'm going to talk about some of these. So I'm going to kind of talk about some of these. So like one of my favorites on here was Only You with J Balvin, Wizkid, and Offset. I really feel like the Latin tinge kind of R&B pop type flavor of this song was really wicked appeal. It's kind of like a neat alternative to like the Despacito vibes that were kind of happening. So there is trap, there is Espanol trap out there, Spanish trap. I want to say that J Balvin, I don't know who that is, but I want to say he's kind of a Latin rapper. But I do like the kind of Spanish tinged and kind of like R&B kind of contemporary feel that song had. It was definitely a gem, and the production was really nice. This really felt like this kind of was like a kind of slinky club song in that sort of sense. And the Only One interlude with Travis Scott was a really kind of haunting, and I like the piano tingedness in that song. Travis Scott's kind of malaised wails really fit that song well. 10 Freaky Girls with 21 Savage has this ghoulish and kind of spooky kind of feel that 21 Savage I remember him doing. So that's another kind of haunting one from him. And Dreamcatcher with Sway Lee and Travis Scott kind of gives off a kind of R&B, trap R&B type feel that kind of has this like a kind of spotty and kind of like This kind of has a hoppish and boppish kind of feel, just kind of spotty and just kind of almost popish in that sort of sense, kind of like Only You, but without the Espanol stuff. And trying to think, there's a couple more I want to talk about. Like No More really has, that's probably like the most malaise song on here. Travis Scott really gets some malaise type songs on here that just kind of have like this anguish to them. And I really appreciated this, the kind of overcast late evening 7:30 p.m. in the summertime evening kind of feel. Kodak Black is a nice touch on there, and 21 Savage and Travis Scott handle this song well also. I really felt like that kind of anguish in the song was just really good. Just they're not being able to trust and having like the problems that they're going through. It just felt really interesting to kind of get that. So those are just a few of the ones. I think I talked about all the ones I enjoyed, but there were some kind of awkward ones. I was kind of disappointed by Gucci Mane's offering. I kind of felt like the production on there was pretty awkward, and Lesbian was a missed bag. And I didn't like the. I felt like Borrowed Love with Sway Lee and Wizkid was kind of a mess. I was kind of hoping for like I just didn't like the arrangement of the song and how that kind of went. And like I liked some of the beat of the song Don't Come Out the House, but I really hated the arrangement of how the song went. I just felt like if it would have had like a certain part near the end of the verse, if that would have been the verse and then it would have had like a different part for the chorus, it probably would have worked a lot better. But there are some of these that just have kind of some awkward arrangements that kind of ruin the song, and I felt like that happened on Don't Come Out the House and like Lesbian and some of those type songs. So this is kind of a disappointment, and yeah, that's just kind of the concept. But another song I did like was Up to Something. I forgot to talk about that one. That was a nice kind of Young Thug delivers a nice kind of entry to the club kind of trap song. I feel like this is kind of one of those ones where you kind of give dap and that type stuff, give a couple pounds, that type stuff. The entry of getting the night getting ready to get started. This is one of those ones where it's not midnight and mid party and that type stuff, where it's kind of like this the kickoff to things is kind of what that reminded me of for Up to Something. I did like the kind of ghostly kind of feel that the production had also. Young Thug did a great job on there. And yeah, it's me liking 8 out of 13 songs on here. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 7.5 out of 10. I feel like a 7.5 is pretty good. If it had gotten like a 10 out of 13, it'd probably get like a 9, or like if it would have been 11 out of 13, it would have been a 10. So yeah, about maybe a 7.75. I'll give this record a 7.75 out of 10 just because it had a nice amalgamation of hits on here and a nice crafting of how it did it. And I definitely feel like song like the singles are great. Space Cadet and No Complaints are great. I did like the ghoulishness of 10 Freaky Girls, and I really like the R&B kind of pop flavor of Only You with J Balvin, Offset, and Wizkid. And like Up to Something, it was a nice entry to the club type song. So there were some great ones on here. 8 out of 13 I wound up enjoying. The album doesn't start off well, but the about most of the second half of the album, and once you get past like the first 3 songs, it really kind of has like some immediate or some great songs on here, just depending upon what it is. But to kind of talk about this a little bit more, 7.75 out of 10. The social score I will give a 6.5 out of 10 because I feel like 2 singles is kind of meager considering that this would have been a breakout for this producer to kind of get him more offerings. I mean, I don't know how far they could have pushed it, but I do think there should have been a Future song on here, and Drake might have shown up one more time, something like that. I mean, I know Drake was large enough at that point that just the fact that he was on there was a good thing, but um, probably a little bit more promotion. And I'd also have to say that in terms of like some of the immediateness of it, I feel like songs like Only You, No Complaints, Space Cadet, 10 Freaky Girls, Up to Something are like the most immediate ones. And I'd probably have to say, yeah, that's about 5. So that's kind of the concept. And No More is kind of has a nice haziness, but like I said, the learning curve on here just kind of has like some degree, just depending upon how much like trap is going through your constant rotation. Depending, I mean, if you're listening to it more than 40% of the time, it should not be insanely difficult to take a grafting to this. But I just wonder, like, the concept of what kind of goes along with it. I do feel like, once again, to say, I feel like No Complaints is pretty immediate. Space Cadet, while the beat is not as A-list as it could be, I do feel like that's a solid one just for stepping out. And Only You is a great kind of left field kind of R&B, and especially Hispanic or Latin rap R&B kind of flavor. And 10 Freaky Girls really has some ghoulishness, and Up to Something, it's just a nice club bop. So this is kind of the concept about it. And social score goes to 6.5 out of 10. Can this record be topped? In ways, but this is still pretty damn solid. And in terms of the future, like, Metro Boomin has an album that's coming out pretty soon, so we'll see what's going to happen with that and how well that's going to turn out and what sort of surprises are going to happen with it. But I am kind of stoked for it just to see, because this was actually pretty solid, so I wonder what else is going to happen next.